Hey guys, Gathering the Magic back again. Here is Land Part 3 discussion. Just a little bit of a recap of what we know and some speculation as to what the prices will be based on the rarity of the land that you open. So this is going to be kind of a longer video, so sit back. Hopefully you have a drink, maybe a snack, relax, just sit back and listen and follow along and just write down any questions that you may have or anything that you may agree or disagree with and leave them in the comments below at the end of the video. But this is going to be a longer video, so a lot to cover. So like I said, just relax and we'll get started. Okay, so what do we know so far about land for sure? Okay, we know the total plots. There's going to be 150,000 of them. We've known that for some time. There's going to be a total of 150 castles and 1,350 keeps. Okay, we're not sure what bonuses those are going to provide for the owners, but they will have some sort of a bonus, and probably also a bonus for that region or that tract that they're in. Okay, those are the things that we kind of know and are kind of guessing at this point. Now, another thing that we do know for sure are there are going to be 3 different categories of land. One category are natural resources, and these are grain, wood, stone, and ore. These are going to be used to basically construct your building, upgrade your building, and then do repairs on your building. Okay, and all of these have to be refined. It's not going to be simply that you collect grain and then you use the grain to feed your monsters and summoners. You have to refine the grain. You probably have to store it. So there's several different buildings that you're going to need for these natural resources. So the next category is magical. So some of the plots are going to be magical in nature, which means they are going to produce one of 6 different magical components, which are listed here. And these are going to be used to mint your item and spell cards. And these are going to be more rare than the natural lands. So there's going to be more plots that have grain, wood, stone, and ore than plots that have the 6 magical resources. Now, how rare than normal than the natural lands, we're not sure at this point. But later on in the video, I will do a little bit of speculation and we'll get into those numbers. The last category of land is occupied, which means there's monsters on the land that you have to fight and defeat to get their essences. And their essences are the second item that you're going to use to create a spell. So just looking at this from the basics, the natural resources are what you're going to want in the beginning to basically build your building, upgrade it a couple of times, and then after that, those resources really aren't that important because you're going to be spending most of your time crafting your items. So once your building is built and upgraded to, let's say, level 2 or 3, you'll probably say, okay, I'm going to start ready and start crafting these items. So your magical plots and your occupied plots, just based on that, are going to be worth more and desired more than the natural resources. These are going to be kind of like your common tier resources. These are going to be kind of your rare, and the occupied is going to be your epic and maybe your legendary values, let's say. Okay, so what can we speculate on with land? There's so much right now that we don't know, but here is kind of my guesstimate of how it's probably going to break down. Now, out of the 150,000 plots, they said most of them are going to be natural, and then there's going to be fewer amounts of the magical resources and the essences. So some numbers that worked out really good. Let's say there's twice as much grain, wood, stone, and ore as there are of all the other resources. That would lead to about 20,000 plots for each of these natural resource types. There are 6 different magical resources, so if we say 10,000 of each of those, that's another 60,000, which leaves 10,000 for essences. So this is kind of speculation, but just based on the numbers and what seems to fit really well, I'm pretty confident these numbers will be pretty close to what you will see in game. So with 150,000 plots, a little bit over half of them are going to be just your basic resources, the grain that you need to feed your monsters, and the wood, stone, and ore that you need to construct and maintain your buildings. Now, for each of these, okay, how many grain plots are going to be common, rare, epic, legendary? Well, what we can do is we can kind of look at, let me find the totems. If you look at totems, totem prices right now, common totems are going for around $17.50. Let's just round that up to an even $20. Rare totems are going to be, let's say, $40. I think right now they're selling about $37. Epic are $120 and legendary are $480. So basically, for your common land, or your common totems, excuse me, if they're $20, then basically a rare is worth twice as much as a common, an epic is worth 6 times as much as a common, and a legendary is about 24 times as much. So this kind of gives you an idea based on totems of just how they will probably do the same pricing in the market once it comes out based on the rarity. So just doing kind of a breakdown of the rarity of the plots, if we say there's going to be 20,000 grain, 20,000 wood, and so on, how does that break down? Well, probably a pretty good percentage would be, out of the 20,000, probably around 14,000 of them are going to be common, 4,000 rare, 1,600 epic, and usually about 2% of like cards in the game are legendary. So I'm thinking about 2% of the plots are going to be legendary. So all told, for your natural resources, it looks like you're going to have a total of 56,000 plots are going to be just common. So that's about a little more than 1 in 3. So about a third of your plots are just going to be common, everyday, natural resources, not too exciting, not the greatest value. But if you get a legendary one, which is there's probably only going to be 1,600, maybe as many as 2,000, those are going to be more desirable. And then as far as the magical components go, the same breakdown is basically half of these numbers since there's half of each. So if there's only 10,000, let's say Sparkstone, probably 7 out of the 10,000, 7,000 are going to be common, 2,000 rare, and so on. So the breakdown with the math comes out to 150,000, but this gives you just an idea of just how many plots there's going to be roughly based on each rarity. So yep, doing the numbers, a little over half of the plots will be natural, 40% will be magical, and only 7% are occupied. Now keep this in mind, occupied plots are the only plots in the game that will have essences. And essences you have to create an item or spell. So occupied plots, even if you get a common occupied plot, that's going to, one of these 7,000, this is going to be extremely valuable, more so than if you got a common, reclaimed soul or a common stone plot, just simply because you have to have this to create an item or spell. Now, let's look at the prices of the plots. So like I just went over with the prices of the totems, commons, let's just say, are $20 for a totem. So if we use these kind of same multipliers, a rare should be twice as much as a common, an epic should be about 6 times as much as a common, and a legendary looks like about 24 times as much as a common. So right now on Hive, land plots have kind of settled between $150 and $175. So if you say, okay, I'm going to buy a plot of land for $150, hope I get something good, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I only got a common, common like ore or common stone plot, then you're kind of disappointed and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, that's probably not worth a lot. I can probably sell it for $50 on the marketplace. Well, what would the other one sell for? Well, using about these same market prices for totems, if you bought a land plot for 150 and you pull an epic, it seems like you're pretty much going to double your money based on these numbers. And if you pull a legendary plot, it'll probably sell for over 1,000. They'll probably be in the $1,200 range, just because of the rarity and just because, oh, it's a legendary plot, it's worth so much money. Here's the key though, not all lands are going to be as desired as others. So not all are going to be worth the same. So let's say you do get a legendary plot. You can't just say, oh, it's $1,200 because it's legendary. What if the plot that you got that's legendary is ore? which once you build your building and you have a little bit set aside for repairs, does it really matter that it's legendary? I mean, as far as I know, the only benefit a legendary land has is it produces more than one that's a lesser rarity. So a legendary is going to produce more than an epic. Let's say a legendary land produces twice as much resources as a common one. Okay, are you really going to pay 24 times the price that you could have a common plot for basically just double the production? Let's just say a legendary plot even has triple the production of a common plot. You could buy 3 common plots for 150 bucks and get the same output as one legendary plot of the same type, is basically what I'm saying. Plus, if you had 3 common plots, you could put 3 buildings on them. Even a legendary plot, as great as it is, you can only put 1 building on it. So that's why I'm saying they're not all going to be worth the same. So my guess is a natural land is probably going to be worth the least amount of the 3 different types when you have natural, magical, and occupied. So let's say that a common ore producing plot is 50 bucks. I would think a magical one would be worth at least twice that, simply because of the desirability for crafting items and the fact that it's more rare. So to me, double the price is a pretty safe estimate. Now for occupied, with it being even rarer than magical, and this is the only one that produces essences that you need to craft items, I would think this would probably be at least 3 times what a natural common plot would be. So going back to the first example, let's say you bought a land plot for $150 and you got a common grain producing land. Yeah, it's probably only going to be worth 50 bucks and you could probably only sell it for 50. If you got a common land, opened it up, and it's a magical resource, like a heliostone, I would not sell it for 50. I would probably try to get 100 at least for it, simply because that is going to be needed to craft components, and it is rarer than a natural resource. And then if you get a common occupied plot, how many did I say there probably are? Common occupied plot, there's probably only 7,000 in the game out of 150,000. That's extremely rare, and you need those for crafting items. So I would put those at least $150. So don't be disappointed if you buy a land plot for 150 and it's common and it's occupied. I would say you would at least break even. And it might be a little bit more than this. I'm saying it's probably 3 times. Maybe it's 4 or 5. I mean, in the end, it's going to be the market that determines this value and the demand. But just my gut instinct is telling me that a 3 times price over a natural plot is probably a pretty safe bet. So then just go up to the rare and epic plot. So if a natural common plot is selling for 50 bucks, using the same multipliers that totems are currently selling for, that would put rare plots for the natural ones at about 100 bucks, the epics at 300, and if you get like a natural grain producing thing, it's still $1,200. So I would say that's pretty good. But then let's say your legendary plot isn't natural, let's say it's magical. I would say you could probably double that price. So if you see someone selling a magical legendary plot and they're selling it for $1,200 when a common plot's going for $100, to me that seems way out of whack, and it seems like it should be selling for a lot more than that. Around $2,000 to $2,500 I would think would be a reasonable expectation based on what the common plots are selling for. And as you can see in the chart, if you get a legendary plot and it's occupied and it's worth, I would say, 3 times what a natural plot is, I would put a legendary occupied plot at, $3,000 to $4,000, somewhere in that vicinity, just because it is just so rare. I mean, there's only 7% of the land plots are occupied to begin with. And like I said, this is the occupied land that produces the essence, legendary. There might only be 200, maybe to 300 in the entire game out of this 150,000. That is how rare they are. So that is definitely something to look for. So like I said, when you reveal your land, pay close attention to the category that it is. Is it natural? Is it magical? Is it occupied? Don't simply worry about, oh, it's common, it sucks. No, if it's common and it's occupied, you broke even at least, I would say. And then, like I said, if you get a rare or an epic and it's occupied, you're coming way ahead. Because this is basically, if you think $50 is going to be the bottom of for this chart. So if natural resources $50 and you get a legendary occupied that's $3,600, that's basically based on this column right here. Now we know from last fall what were plots selling for, $600-700 at the peak. Let's just look at the $500 column. So basically multiply it by 10. So if common plots that are crap end up selling when, if the market booms or land just takes off, if a common plot is selling for $500, just the junky ones, then this legendary plot is $12,000. That's $12,000 for a natural land, a natural plot. That is probably the least desirable of the three categories. So now if you get a magical land and plots are selling for $500, look at the prices here. A legendary magical land could be $20,000 to $25,000. And then, of course, the legendary occupied plot, multiply this by 10, is going to be $30,000 to $40,000. And that's for one plot. So those numbers are insane, but if you realize just how rare and how low the numbers are for occupied lands. Now, like I said, this is a guesstimate. I do not know this for sure. All I am going by is what they said in one of the land pages where they talked about land and how a majority of the lands are going to be natural, are going to be more common. These are considered, the magical resources are going to be, they said, more rare. Now, how rare? That's to be determined. Like I said, these numbers are all speculation. But if we speculate that there's going to be at least twice as many natural as magical, which is probably the most conservative, you could take a look at the numbers here. Let's say I'm off. Let's say that the natural ones are 3 times more prevalent than the magical resources. That is going to lower these numbers significantly. So now you're probably looking at not half of the plots are going to be natural, maybe 60-65% are natural. So now the magical drops to maybe 30%. So all these go down. So your 200 for the legendary, maybe it's only 150. But I think these numbers are, like I said, they're my best guesstimate at this point. Now, last thing I want to talk about is land appreciation. Okay, so I bought my plot. I bought it for $150. I ended up getting a rare magical plot. I'm going to guess it's about $200. I came out a little bit ahead, but what's it going to do in the future? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is there going to be a lot of these resources on where it's not needed so much? What is land going to appreciate in the future? Okay, my feeling is I expect the natural plots, they're all going to fall in price eventually. In the beginning, they're going to be in high demand because everybody has to build their buildings. Everybody's going to upgrade their buildings to level 2, 3, 4. As it starts getting higher levels and takes more resources and time, it's going to start slowing down in the demand. Repairing will probably only be occasionally, so that's also going to slow down. So I expect natural plots to maybe raise slightly, and then they're just going to slowly go down over time. People are going to have stockpiles of these eventually, and they're just going to sit on them for repairing and upgrading. So natural plots, where they're probably going to be highly desired in the first couple 3 months. After that, they're just going to drop off. Now the magical plots, I think they're going to hold their value, and they're probably going to slightly go up because you're always going to need these resources to craft items. But of course, as more and more people produce these items and put them on the market, it's the whole supply and demand thing. But I think they are going to hold their price or maybe slightly appreciate. Now, this all depends on one very important point. What is the drop rate of magical resources compared to occupied, and how many of each are needed to create an item? And basically what I mean by that is, let's say you want to create a dragon card. You're going to need heliostone and you're going to need an essence, those two components. Now, are you going to need one of each? Just for an example. Am I going to need one heliostone and one essence? If that's true, and if each land produces the same amount, whether it's magical or it's occupied, where for every heliostone you're producing an essence, The problem's going to be there's only 7,000 essences produced a day, and you're going to have 42,000 of magical resources produced a day, which means all these resources are not going to get used because there's not as many essences to cover how many magical resources there are, if it's on a one-to-one basis. Now, hopefully what Splinterlands does is they realize this, and if these numbers are kind of close, they're going to say, hey, we need each occupied land to drop 6 essences for every magical resource to balance it out. That way, let's say it takes 1 heliostone and 1 essence to create an item. You're producing 6 of these a day. That will cover 1 for each of these that's produced per day. Because otherwise, if it's a 1-for-1 basis, since there's 6 times as many of these as there are essences, eventually the market is just going to get flooded with these because people are going to have such an excess of these and not enough essences to basically craft items. So at some point, I think Splinterlands is going to have to either boost production for occupied lands or just right off the bat set them at 6 for 1. So that is like a very key point that we don't know at this point is what is the drop rate going to be? Now, if they drop at the same rate, essences and magical resources, a legendary occupied plot will be the most expensive and desired in the game, hands down. Because legendary means it produces the most and it's the rarest, and occupied is the rarest category of land in the game. So if you get a legendary occupied plot, you basically hit a home run. Hang on to that. And this example at the end is what I was just talking about. If it takes 6 heliostones and 1 essence to make an item, everything kind of balances out. But if it takes 1 of each to make an item, there's going to be a huge buildup in the supply of heliostones. Okay, guys, I think that's about it for this. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot of numbers. Like I said, this is all speculation on my part. The market will basically decide the prices in the long term. But just going by what the rarity of totems are selling for right now, that's what I base the rarity of land, what it will sell for. And like I said, based on what the common plots sell for, you can kind of use these multipliers to see what the rare, epic, and legendary plots could sell for. And then they'll get even more of a bonus based on what category it is, natural, magical, or occupied. Okay, guys, so let me know in the comments, what do you think of all this? Do you agree, disagree? Like I said, the numbers may be off a little bit. Do you think land will appreciate this much? What other comments or suggestions do you have based on all these numbers? Like I said, did a lot of speculation. It's a lot of things that we don't know, but it's always fun to kind of look at the numbers and just kind of brainstorm ideas of, okay, if I get this type of land, how much can I sell it for? Should I hang on to it? Is the market undervalued? So hopefully these numbers gave you kind of a good guideline, or at least starting point to think about based on the amount of land that you have and the resources you have to work your land. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hope this was useful. If it was, please like and subscribe. If there's any questions, comments, anything at all that you would like me to discuss, or things that you feel about these numbers, if they're off or whatever, or what you think land will be, any of that kind of stuff, please leave it in the comments below. I will read your comments. I will respond to your questions as quickly as I can. And the next video that I am working on is going to be probably more related to GLX. So watch for a GLX video. I think I might actually do that in the next few minutes because I think it's important to get that video and that information out soon. So thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for another video that I will upload shortly talking about GLX token. Until then, hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for subscribing and watching the video. And I will see you again soon. So watch out for that video probably in the next couple hours. Take care, guys. Happy grinding. We'll see you soon.